Hi everyone. I have done this many time, and somehow it feels like it's very formal every time, and it makes me nervous when it feels formal. But I'm reminded I'm in a space where I am with family and loved one, and so that eased my nervousness a little bit. I really have no clue what to talk about. I thought about it here and there for the past couple of days, but it's just those spark of lightning that come and go. I can start sharing about just my journey, my life journey, not from the beginning. I'm sure you guys have heard that so many times. So the day, March 3rd, 2020, was it? March 3rd, 2020 was a very special day for me. That was the day I was found suitable for parole. I went to my first parole board hearing, and I was told that I I can be a free person. And before I get to that point in my life, there was hope in the back of my head. It's like a shadow, very it's very dim. It's not. Uh, so it was a surprise to me that they told me that I can be free. It's just that for 20 years I have held on to the idea that that's not possible. I believed it, and I think that's how I cope with my situation, is to believe that to be true and find way to live with meaning and purpose despite of that condition. And 7/20 was the day I actually stepped out of the prison gate. I got picked up by my brother. That was at the peak of COVID, I think. And I also remember that day very clearly. I remember how I stepped out the gate, and it just surreal turning around and looking at the building. I remember the only time I seen the building from that view was when I'm on a bus going into the prison. That's we in there, and it was eerie feeling because it was dark and it's small, and you just see little rectangular window. But now when I look back at it, it's almost like you watching a television, and it's just unrealistic to you. It's almost kind of like wearing glasses and take it off and put it back on. It's just unrealistic. And so July 20 of 2024, I would have been home 4 years, which was surreal to me as well, because I don't think about it often. But I had a moment I shared with Nancy recently. I was going into the juvenile hall here in Orange County, and I was in the holding area waiting to get called so I can visit a youth. I've been mentoring this youth. And for some reason, they kept me there for 40 minutes. I don't know what, maybe they have some type of movement going on. But I remember sitting there, and I remember feeling, have this cold breeze on my skin, and I can hear the ventilation, the noise of it, and I can hear this this white noise of emptiness, of just silent, and I get goosebumps. Like I felt as if I was there. I was waiting to go to court. I was waiting for a visit. I was waiting, and I look at the door, and I hear a sound of footstep, and I hear door clanging. It was so real to me that as if I was transported somehow, like I was just dreaming. And I realized how conditioned we are as human beings. That those things linger. They lie dormant. They stay within us, and they stay in the body. And so that was one of the moments that had my mind start thinking. Then I realized, wow, I have been home over for a year, which is quite surreal. And so today I sit here and I share with you here. In my mind kind of shift in and out of the reality I'm in, and where I have been. And that also influenced my perception of the reality I'm in. I also had moments of thinking about how the teaching of Buddhism, the practice of mindfulness, have influenced my life. And I remember when I was in prison and I was going through the process, preparing for the parole board, how much dedication I placed on the practice of meditation and Buddhist practices. So one of the things that come to mind for me, and please bear with me because I'm just going to say stuff that's just going to pop out my ear. It might not be, linear or coherent. One of the practices that I find really fascinating when I was in prison was the sixth paramita. When I start learning about Buddhism, I initially learned through what the Buddha teach, what Pola, I can't remember the name, but it's a very popular book that teach about the basic of Buddhism, and it's a book based on the tradition of Theravada tradition. And it plays strong emphasis on the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Paths, which it's very powerful and it's enlightening. You can just practice one of those practice and take a lifetime to practice. So I was influenced by that. And then later on was influenced by the Mahayana tradition. And when I was introduced to the six paramita, I'm like, oh, this is something very interesting, fascinating to me. And I was a very advanced student at that time because my mind is just so, it's like a sponge. I want to absorb everything. And I want to do it right. And it's almost like, it's not just trying it out to see what it is. It's not a curiosity thing for me. It was a life endeavor because I didn't perceive any exit for me. At that time I was serving life without. So what remedy, what can I utilize? What can I learn to give me a sense of peace and purpose and meaning while my condition doesn't afford me that? And it's fascinating with the six paramita is because when you learn about the six paramita, you learn about the Heart Sutra where they talk about emptiness. And when this concept was introduced to me, I was like, wow, it's I ran around with it like a preacher. I didn't really understand what it means, but I'm telling everything is empty. Do you realize that? They know me, they know you. I don't know why you're suffering. We are interconnected. And this is transcendent. Our experiences here is nothing. It's just it's just how we perceive it at the moment. And I used to there were moments that I used this as a medicine for me. When I was in solitary confinement, when I was in there by myself, I didn't really have anyone to talk to. All I had was my own inner voice. This teaching become very profound to me. It's like the absolute truth. Like no one can dispute these teachings for me. And I take it to heart as I practice it. And I remember when I was of the six paramita, the first paramita is generosity. And when you look at the paramita in the context of perfection, of emptiness, You don't think about who is giving, the object is that is given, the receiver that receiving it. You practice to see all those three stages that are empty, and therefore you don't have a idea of reciprocation. You don't have an expectation. It's something that just naturally occurred. This altruistic idea of just serving other, that we are a vessel to bring enlightenment to other. I truly believed in that, and I practice it. I practice it in a sense where every time, and it's very superficial the way I practice is because, there's a very strong sense of I that arrive. So if I was in solitary confinement and access at that time, and someone just showed up, I have a soup or a bar of soap left. That's all I have. And I would talk to myself, I should give this away. And I would reason to myself, because that is the thing to do, and it's empty. I'll get another bar of soap. I wouldn't need this. And at the beginning, there was like a very strong self to that, right? I'm sitting there, I'm reasoning with myself. And I'm thinking, there is a reward to that, because now I feel like a good person doing it. But that's how I started out practicing this. I started out trying to practice the perfection, but I'm limited. And of course, I think it's very hard for anyone to practice. And then what I struggle most is not the most, but the next paramita was, I think, moral discipline, if I remember correctly, or ethical discipline. And the idea of us trying to do good or doing good. For me at that time, I do good with condition. I wanted to change my life. I wanted to be a good person because I wanted to perceive that way. I wanted to change the stigma that was placed on me. That was my initial reason why I wanted to do good. And doing good, I didn't really see the harmfulness of that. I didn't really see that the action I caused, the action that I take was stemmed from selfishness, that it caused suffering to myself and other. I just wanted to, I figured, I was telling myself to do the right thing. It's how I wanted to show up. It's how I want people to perceive me. I didn't really see deeper than that. I didn't really understand the idea of why we practice moral discipline or ethical teaching. And then I realized when I practice meditation, all my shame and guilt starting to show up. And I wondered to myself, why is this thing so prominent in my mind? It is because I have not been practicing ethical discipline. My mind was deluded because we know what we do. We know ourselves. We can show up any way we want, and we can deceive the world. We can deceive ourselves. But that moment in meditation, these things will come up. And when these things come up, it's actually see that we have planned ourselves. So it's not so much practicing ethical discipline is to be a better person or to save the world. Or I think practicing that, the first thing that it gives us is clarity of mind. Is allow us to lessen the shame and guilt. And maybe we can start there. Of course, it's going to keep showing up because I continue to make mistakes, take unwholesome action that lead to harming myself, harming people that I care about, because I was not mindful at the moment. So I made a point when I was in prison is that I have to be mindful of everything I say, the three door in Buddhism: speech, mind, and action. I have to be mindful of that. And I take this to the heart in practice. And the next paramita was patient. So patient not only with ourselves, but with other people. I mean, not with other people, but also with ourselves, right? Patient is an antidote for anger. I remember in the Bodhisattva, the path of Bodhisattva, Santideva mentioned that, you can cultivate virtue for 1,000 of years, but one moment of anger will dispel all that virtue. And anger, of course, is one of the most challenging thing for us to endorse or to overcome, because sometimes when it happened, we are just too caught up in it to realize that we are even angry. So the practice of patience help us to see our emotion clearly as it arises, and really see the root cause of where did this anger come from. And anger can be projected out, or it's also directed inward. And in meditation, you will see that show up, and sometimes it show up in shame and guilt. Those are a form of self-afflicting anger we have upon ourselves too. And so I tell myself to practice patience, to wait. And as we all know, you learn patience. That's the first thing you will learn when you come when you come into an institutional setting. And you will also learn how impulsive, I learned how impulsive I was, that my mind cannot withstand a moment of inaction. I just can't. I have to do something. I have to respond. I have to react. I just didn't have that discipline. So I learned that. I actually learned to think before I say something. I actually learned to think before I do something. And so that was another practice that I cultivated wholeheartedly, as mindful as I can. And then I think the next one is enthusiastic effort. I think it's effort and enthusiastic effort. So we do things, and we do put forth effort to do things. But if we put forth effort to do things, not enthusiastically, not joyfully, it's going to wear us out, because we simply don't enjoy doing it. We feel forced, we feel coerced. Maybe we didn't have a really clear understanding of why we were doing it. But that's kind of tied in for me when I come to that realization. It's kind of tied into the other practices of generosity and ethical discipline. I kind of had a clear understanding, and then it'll lead to the other paramita. But then I start to have a very clear understanding. It's not so much that I want to do this practice to gain a certain result. I want to transform myself. I want to be a type of person that actually want to be generous. I want to be the type of person that is patient, that can tolerate and endure obstruction or oppression. Because I was tired of being the other person. I was fighting all my life. I was tired doing that. It didn't work for me. I keep finding myself in situation that's harmful to myself and other and people I care about. So that's where I come to realize, and the joyful effort have a component which I find fulfilling, is the joyful effort can come in a form of community. when we practice with other people, when we find like-minded individuals that have the same desire to be good, they want to help other people. They the type of people that not hanging on to small thing or have such a strong sense of ego that they actually practicing the paramita, right? And I see this through, volunteer, right? Nancy, Bruce, Jill, like my mind is all over the place. If I don't name your name, I'm naming you, because for you to come into prison and visit us and sit with us and to meditate with us, you exemplify what this practice can lead to. And again, like I realize not so much to attain, like I don't want to become a great meditator or a virtuous person in people's eyes. I kind of want to transform myself into the type of person that like to do virtuous thing. I want to enjoy meditating, not to meditate to get to a certain point. And that was what I was cultivating. That was what I was practicing when I was in that space. And the next paramita is meditative concentration. And of course, if we are not concentrated and if we are distracted, then we won't be able to practice the four previous paramita effectively. And I have a very distracted mind. And distraction for me geared toward destruction, negative behavior, habitual pattern that I have cultivated as a form of avoiding what I'm feeling, what I am experiencing. And through practice, I started to see this. I didn't realize that was how my mind worked, and that's what the type of coping skill that I have. And so I practice meditation. I practice mindfulness. I practice to pay attention to what's going on in my body and how I respond to certain stressor. And it become, it's almost like it become a response for me. Like my mind instantly pay attention to those things. And concentration too can be geared, right, with intention. We can concentrate on negative things, like if somebody says something to us, or we have certain experiences that we find unpleasant, we can concentrate on that, like stay on it for a day. Just imagine the energy, the power we have to hold single pointedness to that problem. And we're capable of doing that. And yet when we are asked or we tell ourselves to focus on something positive, something wholesome, it requires effort. Well, at least for me it was. It took effort for me to do positive things. And lastly, it leads to wisdom. And what I realized that whenever I'm angry, whenever I feel, whenever I have this afflicted emotion that tend to fuel my habitual tendency of making the choices that I've been making in my whole life, there's a sense of this connection between me and my environment and people around me. I feel isolated. And it go back to the idea of, emptiness, that the Buddha taught that we are interconnected. We are all interconnected. I realize that. I realize that every time I feel, when I experience some form of suffering, either through anger or frustration or even ignorance or delusion, like I'm not really clear, I'm reflect about what to do, it's because I am out of touch. I am disconnected. And I share all this is because I don't practice it anymore. I don't. And I feel terrible about it. I have those moments when I share with you earlier, when I sit in there for 40 minutes, I used to sit here and my mind was geared toward positive thought, wholesome thought, that then no thought that weighed me down, thought that that give a tone of suffering arise in me. When I was in prison, when I was in the hole, I was actually at peace. I was actually cultivating and practicing. I see all this thing very clearly, and now it's just intellectual to me. All this thing is very intellectual to me. And so yeah, that day that I mentioned to you in the juvenile hall, I sat there and I meditated. And I realized that sometimes we have to suffer in order for us to really put things into perspective. It's just so hard when we are in that moment of suffering, when we are sin in the fire, is when we truly find peace. Well, at least that for me. It's weird. And so sometimes I gear my mind towards that. That's why I'm involved in prison work. That's why I'm involved with this sangha, because I need it. If I don't have our community, if I don't continue in this work, I will take things for granted. I don't have any reminder. And, I have not mentioned all these other things that I have experienced and I come home. Some are wonderful moments, but there's a lot of things that was I didn't anticipate, and I suffer. So it's not only suffering in the context of being incarcerated. I suffer out here. I suffer like everyone else. I suffer, and every time I suffer, I have a tool. I have a source to go back to. And for me, and I know I share this a lot, but how valuable is a practice and how valuable it is for us to encounter a practice in this lifetime. Like that analogy of a turtle, having a yolk, stick his head to a yolk and it only arrived on the surface for, I don't know, 100,000 years or something. To me, it was very fascinating. And to be born in this human form, out of the samsara, we get to be in this human form where we experience all the other realm. And the other thing, so as I get older, as I get more mature, I realize how valuable this teaching is. And like I say, I don't have my mind just going everywhere. I'm just sharing what popped up for me. And I guess what I want to say is that, we are fortunate that we find each other, that we have this practice, this teaching, and that we should take time to reflect on that and find area where, maybe before I used to do this a lot, maybe I should start doing that again and find time for it. So that's my message to our community. Thank you for listening to me.
Yeah,
Okay.
I feel very grateful for being here and being part of this community and being here tonight to hear you talk on the 6 paramitas, because I can't tell you how many times I have been taught about the 6 paramitas. And of course, every time is different, but the way you gave it to us was such, it was very, you may think that you're not practicing and you're intellectual now, but your talk was, it was very experiential. I felt like I was experiencing the 6 paramitas, and I was hearing how you experienced the 6 paramitas and how they're all integrated and one is held in the other. And I just so appreciate what you gave us tonight. It was really a gift.
No, Nhut, you're a person that I always, every time you speak, I get something, and I can't put it in words all the time, but for me, wow, it's like you're on a level, because you really steady, and it's like for me, you know, I I get I get so much of this stuff, um, intellectually and the concept, but I really want to get it on an experiential level. I really want to get it like on a realization level, because I'm aware of emptiness and how we just exist, and there's like a false, I won't say false, but there's us, where we connect with the world, and then there's a greater us that's really connected with everything, and but you still have to deal with and for me, it's like a lot of times I've gotten out of this. It took a long time to get out of the stage where, I would fault others for the way I feel. If I felt a certain way, I'd look around and it would be someone or some situation or something,